Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patience. So today we are going to be making this beautiful trouser and it is going to be a very easy method. So before we get started, kindly click the subscribe button. If you have done that, let's get into it. So I'll be using this Ankara print for this tutorial and I'll be using about 2.5 yards. So this is my waist line and the first measurement I'm going to take is my crotch depth. So on an average, the crotch depth is 12 inches. So another way to measure the crotch depth is to sit on a chair and measure vertically from the waist down to the seat of the chair. So I'll be using 12 inches for the crotch depth and I am not going to minus the waistband. So you can minus the waistband if you like. So now I'll mark my waist to knee, which is 24 inches, and I'll mark the full length, which is 40 inches. And I'll be adding about 2.5 inches for hemming allowance. So this is my waist line, crotch line, knee line, and full length. So the next thing I'm going to do is on the waist line, I'll mark 1.5 inches. And on the crotch line, I'll mark 1/2 inch. Now on the knee line, I'll mark 1 inch. Also on the hemline, I'll mark 1 inch. So after doing that, I'm going to connect the points. I'll connect the 1.5 inch to the 1/2 inch this way. And from the 1/2 inch, I'll connect to the 1 inch on the knee line and also on the hemline. So this is just to create the hip shape, as you can see. So I'm going to start my measurements from this line. So on the waistline, I am going to mark 1/4 of my waist measurement, which is 36 divided by 4, that is 9 inches. So I started my measurements from this line, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'll add 1.5 inches on the waist measurement. So 1 inch for that and 1/2 inch for ease. Now, in order to get a straight line for my crotch depth, I'm going to mark from this point down to the edge of this pattern paper, that is 12 inches. I'm going to mark the same 12 inches on the crotch line just to get a straight line. So now I am going to mark 1/2 of my round tie on this crotch line. So on the waistline, I divided my waist by 4, but I'll divide my round tie by 2, also my round knee by 2, and my round ankle by 2, that is on the hemline. So on the crotch line, I'm going to mark 1/2 of my tie measurement, which is 30 divided by 2, that is 15. So I'll start my measurement from this point, that is the 1/2 inch. So I'll mark 15 inches. So I'll slant the waistline by 1 inch. So I'm going to mark 1 inch from this line and I'll make a slant to the edge of the waist this way. So after doing that, I'm going to create the crotch curve. So after doing that, on the knee line, I'm going to mark 1/2 of my round knee, which is 10 inches. and I'll mark half of my ankle round, which is 6.5 inches. And now I am going to use my pant curve to connect the points. So for the dart, I'm going to mark half of this slanted line, which is 5.2 inches, and I'll be using a depth of 5 inches for my dart. I'll make sure it is at 5 inches, and I'll be using 1 inch for my dart. So I'll mark ½ inch on both sides and I'll create my dart. So on the hemline, I am going to mark 3/4 inch on both sides this way. And I am going to make a slant from the 2 inch to the 3/4 inch. This is just to have enough fabric to hem with. So that is it for the front piece. Now I am going to cut this out, but I am not going to cut out this slant part yet. I'll use it to cut out the back piece first before I cut it out. So that is it for the front piece. So for the back piece, as you can see, I placed another pattern. So on this, I left space on this part because I'll be tracing it out. And on the waist area, I left about 2 inches space because I am going to slant the back, and I also left space on the crotch line, the knee line, and the ankle line. So from this 1.5 inch, that's the 1.5 inch I added on the waist, I'll come up by 1 inch, and I'll make a slant line from the edge of the waistline this way. So after doing that, on this slanted line, I'll mark 1/4 of my waist circumference. That is 9 inches, as you can see, and I'll add about 3 or 3.5 inches from this point. So if you're making for somebody that is the plus size, you can add 4 inches, and you can as well use 3.5 inches. So I'll mark 3 inches. After doing that, I'll extend these lines. That is the crotch line, the knee line, the ankle line. So after doing that, I will add about 2.5 inches on the crotch line. And on the knee line, I'll add 2 inches. Also on the ankle line, I'll mark 2 inches. After doing that, I'll connect the points this way. So after doing that, I'll join this 3 inches I added here to this point. I'll make a slant line this way. And from the 2.5 inches, I'll make a curve this way. So now I'll also be adding a dart to the back piece. So I'll mark the midpoint of this line, which is 6 inches. And I'll mark 6 inches for my dart, and I'll make sure it is at 6 inches. I'll connect it this way. So I'll be using 1 inch for my dart also. Mark ½ inch on both sides and create my darts. So on the hemline, I'll also mark 3/4 inch, and I'll make a slant this way. And that is it for my pattern. So as you can see, it is really easy. So I'm going to cut this out. And I will not forget to cut out this 1 inch slant for the front piece. So that is it. As you can see, the back piece is longer than the front. So I'm going to cut this out on my fabric. So this is the front piece and the back piece. I cut them out on fold. So I have 4 pieces, and as well marked my darts on both sides, that is on the back piece and the front piece. So I'll be fixing a zip on the front piece. So I cut out these pieces, that is for the zip and the pocket. So this is 7 inches and this is 2.5 inches. So on this other piece, I cut it out on fold, and this is 2 inches and this is 1.5 inches. I just made a slant this way and I cut it out. Now for the pocket, I cut this out, and this is 32 inches by 12 inches. Now for the zip, I am going to make a curve this way, and I'll cut it out. So after doing that, on the front piece, I am going to place good sides this way, and I'll sew by 1/2 inch. So I'm going to mark the 1/2 inch this way and I'll keep it aside. Now for the other piece, I'm also going to mark 1/2 inch because I'll be sewing on 1/2 inch. So for the pocket, I'm going to fold it this way and I'll fold it again this way. So the zip is going to be here and the pocket is going to be on the hip area. So I'm going to place it this way just to get the shape of the waist and the hip. So I'll pin it down and then I'll cut out the shape of the waist and also the hip. After doing that, I'm just going to curve the shape of the pocket. So I have 4, 2 for one side and 2 for the other side. So I'm just going to keep 2 aside. So I'll align the remaining 2. I'll pin it down because I'll be cutting out the pocket. So for the pocket, I'll mark 2.5 inch for the width of the pocket, and the depth of the pocket I'll mark 8 inches. So I'm just going to make a curve this way to create the pocket, and then I'll cut it out. So this is for both sides of the pocket. So I'll place both sides together this way, and I'll be sewing the curve by 1/2 inch. So after doing that, I'm going to fold it this way and top stitch. So after doing that, I'm going to pick one out of the other 2 sets I kept earlier, and I'm going to place it this way and align it. After doing that, I'll turn it over this way and sew the pocket. After doing that, I am going to pin this down, and I'll stitch from this point down to this point just to secure it. I'll also stitch this part. So this is my pocket. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now for the zip, I'm going to sew on this 1/2 inch I marked earlier. After doing that, I'll turn it over to the good side this way, and I'll sew close to the stitch. So after doing that, I am going to place my zip this way, good sides together, and I'll make sure the edge of the zip is on the stitch, and I'll sew on the other edge of the zip. After doing that, I am going to sew on 1/2 inch on the other piece, and I am going to place it this way, turn it over, and I'll sew on the edge of the zip, that is from the good side of the zip. So after doing that, I am going to fold it this way, and I'll mark this part because I'll be attaching the other part of the front piece. So I folded 1/2 inch in, and I'm going to sew close to the zip. And when I get to this finish point, I'm going to open up the 1/2 inch and sew. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to join this curved area. So I'll start sewing close to the stitch. So after doing that, I am going to make like a curve stitch on the zip. So I'm going to fold this way so that I will not close the zip. So I'll pin it down, and I will make the curve stitch. So this is the curve stitch, and this is the zip. As you can see, it came out really beautiful. So that is that for the zip. Now for on the back piece, I'm going to stitch on 1/2 inch this way, and I'll take in my dart. So on the front piece, I took in my dart first before I attach the pocket and the zip. So this is how beautiful it came out. Also on the back piece, I took in my dart and I sewed on this curved area, and this is how it came out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to fold the hemline with the 2.5 inches I left for hemming allowance. So I'll fold in 1/2 inch and I'll fold in the remaining 2 inches. I'll do that on the back piece also. So I have done that, as you can see. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to join the front and the back piece. So I'm going to place good sides this way, and I'll sew on 1/2 inch down from the waist down to the hemline. And when I get to the hemline, I will make sure this hemmed area are aligned, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So if you like, you can remeasure the waist measurement and sew the rest as side seam allowance. So I've done that, as you can see, and I ensure this hemmed area are aligned. So the next thing I'm going to do is to join this crotch area. So I'll make sure I align it, and I'll start sewing from the midpoint down to the hemline. And I'll make sure these parts are aligned. And I'll start stitching from this point also down to the hemline. So I've done that, and I ensure these parts are aligned, and I make sure I ironed it. So this is how neat it came out. So the next thing I am going to do is to attach the waistband. So I've gone ahead to cut it out, and I ironed a hairstay on it. So the length I cut out is 5 inches, and I folded 1/2 inch on both sides, as you can see, and I fold it again this way. And I'll have a band height of 2 inches. So the band is my waist circumference, and I added 3 inches because I want the band to overlap. So I'm going to attach the band. I'll start from 1/2 inch. As you can see, I left 1/2 inch on the band, and I'm going to place both sides together and pin it down. I'll pin it down all through. So what I'm going to do is, on this 1/2 inch I left, I'm going to fold it this way, and I'll sew on the 1/2 inch. After sewing on the 1/2 inch, I'll bring it out this way so that it can cover the open edge. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. Open it up this way, fold it and sew on 1/2 inch, and I'll bring it out. So I'll go and do that and come back and show you. So I've done that. So the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch on the other 1/2 inch of the band. So I'm going to sew on 1/2 inch this way. So you can either sew on the good side or on the wrong side. So I'm going to sew from the good side, and I'll sew round to this point. So after doing that, I'm going to overlap it this way, and I'll put like a button or a hook and eye. So I'll be sewing from the good side. I've done that, and this is how beautiful it came out. So I sewed from the good side exactly on the stitch, and as you can see, it is showing on the wrong side. So that is it, and this is our pant, and this is how beautiful it came out. This is the back. Came out really neat and really beautiful. Now, if you find this video helpful in one way or the other, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to click on the subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell to be updated when I upload a new video. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.